Hey guys, it's Emily, the controversial mom, in a very relaxed setting, wearing my workout gear today because I have been at the gym nonstop since the beginning of January. Our gym is doing a competition for the most points this month wins a prize, and me being the competitor that I am, I have been doubling up on workouts for about a week and a half. And let me just tell you, I am painfully feeling every one of those workouts. My joints hurt, my muscles hurt, I am exhausted, and yet I will go tomorrow for probably 2 more workouts, if not 3, because I am a competitor and I must win. So I am doing my recording after the gym today because it's just been that kind of a day, and I have been doing a lot of research on a new topic that I want to bring to you all. So a couple of weeks ago, I talked to you guys about social emotional learning. And I know for most people it's a relatively new concept and a new word, but I promise you SEL has been around for decades. It is in every single school all across the country, and it is most definitely all in Alabama schools. I have said continuously, and I will continue to say, SEL is extremely dangerous. It is unlicensed therapy, and it is happening without parental consent, and in most cases, without parental knowledge. It is extremely dangerous, and parents have got to wake up to what is happening. There was a recording earlier this week with our National Moms for Liberty team and the author Abigail Schreier. Abigail walked through in detail social emotional learning that she's been researching for years. She's been talking to school psychologists. She's been doing amazing work in this field. And as soon as that recording is released, I'm going to put it out on all of my social platforms. So please make sure you go listen to that. If you've not read her book, Bad Therapy, go read it. I promise you it will be life-changing. It is amazing. But all of that's on SEL. I'm not going to talk to you about SEL today, except for it's building upon SEL. So as I've said, SEL is extremely dangerous. It is unlicensed therapy. It is in every school across the country. But there's another piece to SEL that I have just recently learned about. So if you don't know me, I'm going to explain a little bit about how my thought process is. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to follow what I talk about. So I'm going to give you a visual because I'm a visual person. This is one of 4 notebooks I have right now. This is a 4-inch binder that is halfway full of documents that I have researched, printed, in most cases read. I've put tabs on them, I've highlighted them, I've made notes, I've done all sorts of things. This notebook is on 2 topics, SEL and MTSS. MTSS is called Multi-Tier Support Services. So think of SEL as kind of the foundation for all this other crap that's going on in schools. I did not know about all these other pieces of what's happening in our schools until I started really looking into SEL. And then as I was digging through that and doing all of my research, I kept seeing these other terms pop up, and then kind of went down the rabbit hole and figured out, holy crap, SEL is only the beginning. There's so much more out there that we have to be concerned with as parents. So that's kind of my focus. I want to talk about specifically MTSS tonight, and then I'm going to talk in the future about something called the whole child, which is 100% the biggest threat facing our rights as parents right now, and no one knows about it. And it is in Alabama schools. I have found the documents. I'm still researching. That's why I'm not talking about that tonight. But also I kind of want to go through these in pieces. So first you have SEL, which is kind of your foundational piece in everything. And then on top of that, you have something called MTSS, Multi-Tier Support Services. So as I was doing my research and I found this information, I found a lot of it through, there are a couple of organizations out there that are really behind MTSS. And some of those are, and I'm sorry, I have to reference my documents because it's still fresh in my brain. I don't have all these names memorized yet. But this one is from the American Institute of Research, or AIR. It is very left-leaning. I've gone out and looked at their website. I printed out about an inch worth of papers tonight of things that I've got to research. So very left-leaning organization pushing this MTSS all across the country. This is not specific to Alabama. Where are my other ones? The other one is something called Council of Chief State School Officers. Interesting fact that I did not know, the Alabama State Superintendent, Eric Mackey, is also the president for that organization. And then, of course, there's CASEL, C-A-S-E-L, CASEL. CASEL is the one that's really behind all of the SEL information. So those are the three organizations that really and truly are pushing MTSS, aside from the Department of Education at a federal level pushing all of this. From an industry perspective, you have CASEL, you have CCSSO, and AIR. So they've been doing a lot of research on this. They've been doing a lot of studies on it. They've been really developing kind of the thought process behind MTSS. So as I was digging through all of these organizations and all of the documents, I discovered something called the SEL MTSS Toolkit. So basically it walks through how to use your SEL platform and feed in all of the MTSS agendas, for lack of a better term, into those programs. Because SEL is already in every public school, it kind of became the easy way to infiltrate all of this other stuff. So as I was reading through this toolkit that I mentioned, I was shocked to find out that in 2020, the organizations that I mentioned actually developed a community of practice, and they partnered with 9 different states. And essentially what happened is they worked with these states and they came up with a framework or a toolkit in which other states could then leverage that information to then go implement MTSS into their schools using their SEL platform. It was a fascinating read, and I was beyond shocked to realize Alabama was one of the states, one of the 9 states that participated in this community of practice. Obviously, I was very concerned. So I did my research. I did as much research online as I could. I tried to find as many documents on my own, but ultimately I had to submit a records request to our State Department of Education trying to find out more information about this partnership. Much to my surprise, our state superintendent was unaware that any of this had happened. When I sent the documents to him that were published by CASEL and on the CASEL website, and I sent them to him and asked for additional documentation, he responded back that he was completely unaware that this had happened and he did not have any additional documentation. So I find that a little alarming for multiple reasons, but nonetheless, the issue remains that MTSS is in our public schools. Now, our superintendent very much knows this. If you go to the Alabama Department of Education website, they are pushing MTSS. They have a whole page dedicated to it. If you go to school district websites, they have information about MTSS out there. It's in all the schools. Like, there's no way to say that you don't, if you're in the school system, you know that MTSS is there. I also know that it's there because federal funding is tied to MTSS. So I'm not going to get into all the weeds of how this works because I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it. But the short version of it is Obama signed something in 2015 that's called the Every Student Succeeds Act. And it basically removes control of funding to the local school agencies. So basically schools get money and then it's up to them on how they spend it as long as it kind of fits within the categories. And one of the categories is mental health, MTSS. So there's funding behind it, which is really the push for schools to adapt this, because if they don't do it, they don't get funding and therefore they do it. So every school system is very different because of this ESSA Act or ESSA that Obama signed. It gives local education agencies flexibility in how to spend their money as long as it kind of fits under the umbrella of mental health or MTSS. So again, it's in every school. That is not debatable. Every one of your administrators at the school should know this. Most of the time you can easily find it on the school website. I found it in a lot. So what is MTSS? After all that, we know it's in schools. What is MTSS? Like I said, it builds upon SEL because they use SEL as the foundation upon which to start inserting all of this content into the schools. So MTSS, as I am still learning about all of this, and I am going to reference my notes because I do think it's very critical that you understand the verbiage that they're using to understand the severity of what's happening. So MTSS is basically a needs assessment on children, and depending upon the assessment, they're placed into certain tiers. So you've got tier 1, which is called universal. That means every student. I am going to keep repeating that because I need you to understand the importance that every student is assessed. You don't know that as a parent. They don't send home any type of documentation that says, we assessed your child and here's the outcome. It just happens. Every student is assessed at a level 1, or tier 1 is the word they use. From there, they then determine if a child needs additional support, or the word they use a lot is interventions. So if your child is assessed as needing extra help, they're moved into a tier 2, meaning they need additional interventions to help them learn. And then if that is not enough, they move to tier 3, where they have intensive interventions. Now, what are these interventions? I am not entirely sure yet. I am still researching that. I can tell you from some of the stuff I read, a lot of it seems pretty harmless. A child's struggling to read, they get an intervention that allows them extra time to read. That's harmless, not a problem. Where my concern starts coming in is there's this very vague phrase that they use about behavioral challenges. Well, what's a behavior challenge? My son could be causing a problem. His behavior may be a problem because he's bored in class and he's staring out the window, therefore he's not reading and doing his work. Are they then going to assess him as a tier 2 that needs interventions? I don't know, because none of this has ever been shared with me. Where I really start having a lot of concern in what I have read, this toolkit in which Alabama was a participant in developing, there's a whole section that talks about equity in our schools. So let's take a pause and remember, Alabama now has a law that prohibits DEI in any school. Any school, whether it's elementary, high school, higher ed, you cannot have DEI. Well, in this toolkit that Alabama participated in developing, there's a whole section that talks about how our school systems are, what is the word that they use? Inherently racist. The theory that our educational system in the very beginning was established in a way that empowered white men to retain power and suppress others. That's what's in this document. It's talking about the educational system being racist. This is from the toolkit that Alabama helped to develop. Now, whether our state superintendent was involved is a whole nother story, but somebody within the State Department of Education assisted in developing this toolkit because it's out there and they're clearly referencing Alabama's data. So they're pushing DEI equity through this MTSS program. Another piece of it talks about safe, just, and supportive school climates. School climates is a whole nother beast I will have to take on at a different time. But again, the core of what MTSS is pushing these radical ideologies that schools have to be safe. And don't think safe means safe from school shootings. Safe means accepting of all lifestyles. That a gay person can come to school and feel safe coming out without being ridiculed. That a child can say, I'm trans, and feel safe to say that without being ridiculed. That is what safe means. So MTSS is pushing that we create safe environments that are accepting of all lifestyles. Just is all social justice reform. It's all about white man bad, oppressor, all of that. That this again is the core of MTSS. So if we're assessing children and we identify that there's a behavioral challenge, what is that behavioral challenge? Is it a child that's not willing to accept all lifestyles? Is it a child that doesn't think that because I'm white, I'm oppressive and I have to apologize for my ancestors and something they may or may not have done? According to this, that's exactly what MTSS is. And this is the toolkit in which Alabama supported the development of. So I will stop at that because that was a lot. And I promise you there's so much more. But MTSS, again, is so much worse than what I ever thought SEL was, because this truly is crossing a line into we are assessing children. They're collecting data from this assessment. They're making determinations and putting children into tiers on what type of support they need, what type of interventions they need, and then there's continuous monitoring. So there's still a lot I have to dig through on all of it, specifically the continuous monitoring, figuring out exactly what that means, what type of data are they using and are they monitoring. It could be something as simple as, grades improve. It could be something that their mindset changes completely to be accepting of all lifestyles. I don't know. So as I learn more on that, I will be certain to pass all of that along to you. But the topic is very broad. It's very, very deep. It's very, very complex. So I wanted to share it in pieces, obviously, as I'm learning it, but also to make it a little bit easier for people to start understanding and wrapping their brain around, because it's a lot. So that is MTSS. You have SEL that's really bad. You've got MTSS that is much worse, but still not the worst of all things that are out there. So I will continue to share as I learn. If you have questions, as always, feel free to reach out. You can comment when they post the podcast. I will also send links out for anyone that wants to look into this. And yeah, if you have questions, let me know. Thanks, guys.